Hey there, and welcome to another week of the App Collective. This week, Nick makes more ASO changes, I discuss problems with shared components, and we both take inspiration from apps we admire.
So how has the week been?
Good. Still chaotic. Less. I know last I said hopefully I would have no major non-app collective coding tasks on Monday. That was, of course, incorrect. But luckily, I only did a little bit 7 and 7 stuff that you and I had talked through last week. So I've made some decent progress on many of my tasks, and on other ones, I'm kind of at an impasse. But at least it means I have something fun to discuss about them. So overall,
Right, okay.
pluses and momentum. What about you?
Yeah, not too bad at all. So yeah, we can go through it. But yeah, it's been like a bit of a funny day today, but otherwise I think it's been fairly good. Yeah.
Nice.
So should we start as always with your iPhone game?
Yes, let us. So, iPhone game. My tasks recently have been to basically create mockups and lock down the revenue model. So, no surprise, I didn't get any decent mockups done. That was my one like super failure over the past week. I just didn't have the time I could set aside to really do them where I was happy with them. So I've actually to jump slightly ahead, I transformed that task to, instead of just being create mockups, I just want to create 2 mockups. Like,
Okay.
start, like I want to contextualize it smaller because my time is going to get even busier with 7 and 7 over the next week. And I don't want this one to keep dragging on me. So I'm trying to be like, you know what, just draw 2 screens to demonstrate how the user will interact with it, and then I can use that as a launching board and make more things. So that is my way to hopefully stop the task bleed week over week for that one.
Sure. And is it I mean, I think that's a good idea. Is it useful to do it as like almost? Is it a good idea to think of it as not even mock-up, but just as like I forget the word, where you just draw it out like on paper or something, really rough.
Right, like a wireframe, right?
Wireframe. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. Maybe, you know what? I'll go in and I'll change the language to like wireframe slash mockups to try to limit the intensity. Because you're right, that's the whole point. Like, you fire up Sketch and you want to build, like, even though I'm dragging and dropping most of the assets, you still have a level of perfection about it. Where if it's literally like you said, like pen to paper, I can just get the concept out and we can debate the concept.
Yeah, exactly. I always feel like pixel perfect designs for developers are less important than for designers because we're going to do the pixel perfect bit ourselves anyway, and we
It's
don't have
very true.
to report to someone else.
Yeah. I feel like that's a whole nother thing of trying to, like not nitpick myself. Like you said, we're going to be pixel perfect in the code. We don't need to do it beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly useful to make the mockups get them to a point of usefulness, but things like getting everything
Yeah,
8 pixels apart or whatever,
exactly.
yeah, you're going to do that later
Madness.
anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I left that one alone. And then so the other one linked to the iPhone game was basically like declaring the revenue model. And that's basically just what would in-game currency buy and what would the in-app purchases buy. And I sat here for like an hour today, bouncing back and forth. I'm really at a crossroads of what model I want to pick, because on the one hand, we have a model like the Mars game that you and I reviewed, where it's mostly in-game currency, and then the in-app purchase bought costumes, right? Like costumes that didn't seem to affect the functionality of the game at all. It was purely a cosmetic choice, right?
Hmm.
And then so there's one, right? Like you have in-game currency for in-game items, and then in-app purchases enable cosmetic only functionality. And I do like that because I like in-app purchases not letting you cheat. But then on the flip side, there are some of the games that I've been addicted to where the in-app purchase enables you, if there's some kind of a play meter that runs out, like you have 3 lives, and once they run out, you have to wait 30 minutes for them to recharge, or an in-app purchase, recharges them right away and things like that. Like that is maybe, it's like I'm conflicted because it obviously would make more sense. Like that would be a better revenue model, but you're also being a little worse as a developer. And so I'm really kind of stuck. Like I'm torn about what I want to each one to do.
So I guess my 2 questions are, and I'll ask them both at once.
Do it.
One is, what makes you think that the second one is a better revenue model? Because I don't know, because I don't play that many games, but I know that the Mars guy, he has made enough to retire, and the guy who did Crossy Road, which is the same model, those guys have done like hugely well. And so that's one question. And then the other question is, which is technically easier?
Okay, so let's hit your first question first. I like knowing that the Mars guy is set because that's just a good story to have. Makes me feel good. The main reason I think about it is almost based off of just what I see of me and those around me. So a game I mentioned a whole bunch in season 1 of the pod was Full of Stars. And this is a game that is more the second model.
Right.
Like you have like your space has a number of uses basically, and they run out when you play a level. And then you can wait, 10 minutes for it to recharge. You can watch an ad, or there's an in-app purchase to give you, quote, unlimited. And there's a lot of such purchases in the game. Like you earn in-game currency, and that levels up your spaceship. But then there are upper limits that can only be removed by in-app purchases and things like that. So there's it's like a fusion of the two, like things that time or advertising can pay for. In-app purchases also pay for as I don't feel like waiting. And like I just noticed yesterday, my friend Kiri was playing a game, which is kind of like an apocalypse end of the world game where you're kind of going around on an open map, and you have something like a weapon, right? But your weapon degrades over time. And she was saying like you would go into like a place with, say, a lot of zombies, and your shotgun would start to break down. Well, you can either die, run away, or an in-app purchase gives you a new item right there. And so like there's an example of like kind of like taking advantage of the fact that you don't want to stop to pay.
Yeah.
And it's like it's like you and I have talked in the past about these feature wiggles, right? Like the pop-up for a sign up and things like that, where I don't love the idea of doing it, but there's no denying that it is effective. So like just going on my own personal experience, I feel like I did not do any in-app purchases in that Mars game, but I did tons of in-app purchases on the ones where I didn't have to like watch an ad, or I didn't have to wait 10 minutes. So that's my rationale on that one.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it sounds solid. Sounds solid.
Yeah. But I think, if I'm going to live in an idealized world, the thing I want to do is I think I just want there to be a very clear dichotomy on what the two things buy. Like I don't want, like I like a system where, say, everything is through the in-game currency, and then the in-app purchases are to get more in-game currency, or something like that. Like there's like a really, like I really like the idea of like a clean workflow. Like, oh, you can play the game will get you currency, but if you're impatient, you can buy more of it and buy more things,
Yeah, and I don't know whether it makes you feel better or worse about the idea, but I know the reason that most games use in-app currency is because people are more stupid with in-app currency. So it's like you're not spending real money, and so basically people will spend more in-app currency than they would real money, and that is why that is I don't know whether that's why it's used, but since there is studies that show that. So it maybe wasn't why it was first used, but it's definitely why it's used, why it's so predominant.
Right. That makes sense.
So yeah. But
yeah,
it certainly makes that is the most popular model for sure.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, I guess the other tricky part is the style of my game. The matching game. The games that are like that adopt kind of that ladder model more or less. Like in-app purchase will buy power-ups or bundles that
Mm.
enable you to get through the levels faster. But I'm trying to remember how the Star Wars game that I modeled a lot of it off after does it. And they didn't have it quite one-to-one. It wasn't like you ran out of, gameplays and you paid for more. That was actually like a locked time thing. But that's also like LucasArts or whoever built it on their behalf. So I don't think they need to worry all that much about, generating revenue like an indie developer would.
Well, yeah, except they got shareholders to answer to, I guess, and probably they probably paid,
That's fair.
probably spent $1 million building it in the first place, or
That's
um,
true. That's true. I think, you know what? I think it really boils down to I just want to make sure I'm not like all those like Total War or the ones that Arnold Schwarzenegger does the ads for. Like, I don't want to be those
mm,
games, I would love to emulate the Mars game. I'm just not sure that's enough,
so
I don't
so
know.
w- I guess the questions then are like, what is the easiest way to do the 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 other, I
Right.
don't know what the name for it is, but the in-app currency way. What's the easiest way to do the in-app currency way? Because really, you need to get this out
Right.
and then evolve it rather than
Yeah.
build the perfect
That's
currency kind
very
of a
true.
currency exchange kind of system.
Right.
Um,
Honestly, if we're thinking like MVP, right? Like easiest
mm,
possible thing, the easiest thing to my mind is in terms of in-app purchases to copy the Mars game because in my mind it's easy. So you start off as default avatar. If
mm,
an in-app purchase, say all the in-app purchases start at 199 US and they allow you to switch to orc, elf, whatever whatever other characters I have in my toolkit, just like the Mars game. And if we employ the gambling aspect of, you could trial run a character for, 30 seconds and the in-app purchase is only 99 cents during that time or whatever, that could be a nice way to do it. And then that could be it for in-app purchases. And then the rest could all be in-game currency to start. And I guess the question then is there in-game currency? Because I liked the thing you talked about way back about a gambling aspect. You finish a level and there's some kind of like spin the wheel, get 5 to
mm,
50 coins, to move yourself forward. Because I find myself conflicted on having A, in-game currency, and B, the time based usages. Like if you have like 3 hearts and every time you start a level it uses up 1 heart, so you have to wait to read hearts. So it's like, do I do just that? Do I do the currency?
mm. Okay, and how much more difficult do you think like the Star Wars kind of? So say you were to just totally copy Star Wars. Do you think that is like
Right.
twice as hard, 10 times as hard, 100 times as hard? Like,
Huh.
uh,
That's a fair point. I would say to copy it like 100% is
just,
probably
just
a
just
couple
the model, not
hundred.
like the
Okay, just the model. Got you.
yeah,
To copy the model, it's probably about 2 times as hard because the full model is actually kind of complex because they have all these in-app purchase packages. Like every time there's a holiday, there's like a C3PO package or something like that that includes a bundle of items. And so it's really difficult to lock down like a dollar amount to a feature or an in-app purchase amount to a feature because in
right,
that game the currency is more like experience points. So like if you win a level, I forget. Let's just simple it down. If you win a level, you get like 1 point, right? And if you do a perfect version of the level, you get 2 points. And to progress in the game, you need a certain number of points. So to like get past the first world, say you need 20 points, and there's 15 levels. So that means you have to beat all the levels, and you have to like
mm,
perfectly beat a few of them. So it's not really a currency that buys something. It's a currency that like enables progress. And that's not
yeah,
very difficult to implement at all.
okay. So so maybe that is the model to copy it then, because that's because you know how that
Mm,
works, and you like, so you don't have to write a spec for that, as it were. Like
right,
you can just
right.
copy what it is, and then you'll know if it feels right. And if it's, I mean, if it was 10 times twice, I mean twice as hard, approximately is, I mean, that is twice as hard, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's still, yeah, it's a manageable difference. Whereas if it was 100 times as hard or 10 times as hard, then that's, yeah.
Right. And now to implement the model fully, like I said, with their weird bundling system and all that other crap, I would say that's a solid 10 times as hard. But to copy just the guts of it is, yeah, like
Right.
not terrible. So what it kind of sounds like, what might make the most sense in terms of have the things there so that I can build off of it, but don't like handicap it right this from the start, would be in-app purchases would cover costumes or, cosmetic changes. And the in-game currency would be the thing that allows you to progress in the game. Like it could kind of just be that simple,
Oh,
right?
okay. So you're not buying progression. Can you buy progression or not? I think I
We'll
misunderstood.
see. And then that's what I'm thinking. So like, let's say you get to one of those points, right, where you need the in-game experience to advance. Should there be
Right.
an in-app purchase to kind of like break that wall down?
And is
I
that
don't
what they
know.
do
I
in
mean,
Star
that could
Wars?
make sense. Uh yes. Actually, it's weird. Theirs is either time-based or in-game currency based. So like let's say you get to the next planet or whatever, it could be like, hey, this planet will unlock in 14 hours. Or you can spend 1,500 of your currency to unlock it right now. And I
And you can
don't off the top
and
of, yeah, go ahead.
and can you buy the currency?
That's what I can't remember at this exact moment.
Okay.
Yeah. God, I want to say yes. I'm just going to fire up the app right now while we're talking so I can know. Because, yeah, if you could buy the currency, that makes sense then, like overall.
Mm, yeah.
But,
Okay.
um, but yeah,
Because
yeah.
I guess what I would lean towards is making like the MVP of the Star Wars game, like because that's a game you like and you
Mm-hmm,
know,
mm-hmm.
and then just so holiday packages and stuff like that, you can do them in version 2 or whatever. Um,
Exactly. No, that's exactly what I was thinking. I think you're right. So basically, I think maybe since my game is most closely modeled after Star Wars, but
mm,
like, fantasy setting, if I emulated its payment methodology, that would probably be the easiest path because also then, like you said, I'm not creating a spec. It's like, oh, what do I do here? What does Star Wars do? Let's reduce it
it,
down to its most simple element.
exactly. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
All right. Copy what Star Wars is. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to write in my revenue model Trello task to basically copy what Star Wars does. And in the next week for that task, I'll simply clarify what that's going to be for the MVP since it obviously can't be exactly what it does.
Sure.
That'll make sense. Cool. All right. That's excellent chatting. Thank you for helping me through that one. I was like really on that one. I don't know why. Like I could not like get myself through it.
That's all right. It's easy to get caught up in the thinking.
Yeah, it totally is. All right. Well, let's pivot over to your first one. The mailing list.
Yeah, okay. So the task was to get progress ready to release with the new screens in and everything. And so that is
Right.
now ready to go. So, and most of the other stuff is ready as well. So there's this
Awesome.
newsletter, or you get 5 emails after you sign up. And the last one includes an attachment that isn't quite finished yet, but everything else is ready. And so I haven't actually hit submit yet, but I can, after we get off the call, I can submit that
Okay.
and get it in the queue because I can change the emails,
Nice.
afterwards anyway. So
Right.
that is in a pretty good state.
That's great.
Yeah, so yeah, fingers crossed. And so I did find some juicy clangers, juicy bugs in there when I was going
Nice.
through it again. So that was good to do the extra testing. And then I'm not really sure though what to do next for that. I think, I mean, obviously I need to stay on top
Okay.
of just when this thing is finished, when the final attachment is finished, getting that uploaded and everything. But I think it's kind of going to be monitoring at least to start with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it would just be monitor. So it'd be release app and monitor subscribers.
Yeah, because I mean, even at that level, that's still a couple hours, you know.
Yeah, it will be. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really excited too because it's kind of a really nice case, right? Like you have an app, there's a web component a little bit, and then the mailing list that can be signed up on either one, and you know, one can lead to the other can lead to the one. It'll be really interesting to like analyze the analytics like a month from now.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how that goes, and then so I guess after next week it will be a case of maybe hopefully having some results from the A/B testing and being able to
Nice.
get rid of one or two of the banners and start doing other tests and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah. Do
yeah.
you think you're gonna reduce the A test down to one of these three, or do you think you'll introduce new variants as you go?
Uh, I have to see what the results look like. When I did it with the
Sure.
A/B testing with World Time, I didn't get as much. There was a clear winner, but it wasn't as clear as I was expecting. And
Gotcha.
so I guess my I don't know. I'll have to see how it looks. I think in the little bits of things that I've watched about A/B testing, they say you're better to make big changes, like focusing on button colors or stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
like really fine tuning doesn't really make as much difference until you've tested like in broad strokes a load of stuff. Um, so I'll have to see which does better and then think about it from there. Um, yeah, I don't know what I'll do. I don't really have any other ideas of stuff to do, but maybe that is something to do this week is to like come up with one other A/B mock-up. Um, hello.
Hello, we lost you.
Yeah, I'm sorry
Good.
about that. I don't know what happened, but
Ah, okay.
I've gone
I
onto.
assumed it was me.
No, it wasn't. It still says it's unstable. I went onto the slow Wi-Fi.
Hmm.
If it cuts out again, I'll go onto my hotspot. Um, so we'll see what happens. There's no excuse for
No
me.
worries. No worries.
I
Okay.
have,
So to
yeah.
yeah, you have spectacular internet service
In theory, yeah.
in theory. But yeah, before you got cut off, you were basically saying that you were going to create a task to figure out what other tasks to do.
Or to come up with another A/B variant. So to come up with something completely different that I could
Right.
pop up as like a
That makes
to
sense.
test against whichever wins
Yeah.
this round.
Well, yeah, because I mean, that's just like I mean, that's the basis of like a genetic algorithm, right? Like you keeping best one, but you got to keep generating kind of competitors to keep improving it.
Yeah, exactly. And then after I've got a winner there, maybe I start thinking about fine tweaking, like doing narrower things, like changing the wording slightly and stuff like
Right.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, and a thing I'll be interested in, I wonder if you would ever get into a situation where, say, like one of the two variants gets more people to sign up, but the people on the smaller variant staying for longer, you know, or some kind of
mm,
weird maker. One gets better click through, one is like a conversion rate.
yeah, that would be interesting. I don't even know whether I'm going to be able to track that. So,
Right, right. Oh, right, because you wouldn't. Well, you could.
mm, I mean, I
I was
definitely,
going to say you could I wonder if you could. Yeah.
it's definitely technically possible, but I don't think I can do that in the setup I have right now. So, um, hmm, that's something to think about. So, research slash
Yeah.
consider how to track AB audience all the way through. Because once they're subscribed,
Yeah. I mean, it might be possible if you
yeah, I'm
right.
sure it is. Yeah.
Well, because what I was going to say is, if you had an ability to pass in a custom data field when they sign up, either through this,
Mm,
like if even if you had two different sign up forms, like with two different pieces of embed code. I know it's an API integration, but whatever the embed code is, or something like that, then it would be in the Mailchimp itself. So you'd be able to actually like segment your consumers based on that field. Like, oh, you came from variant 1 or variant 2.
yeah, yeah. I will look into that. That is a good idea. Because I wouldn't,
Yeah.
if you asked me, I wouldn't expect there to be any difference. But I have seen on the videos I've watched about A/B testing, they found that yeah, that people, it was one about the Obama campaign, and they found people who saw one
Right.
particular image like donated like 5 times as much money as people who saw another image and stuff like that. And so,
Wow. Right.
um, yeah, it can make a difference. So it will be worth looking at.
Right. And it's the thing, I think what made me think of it is I remember Kit told me at one point that Facebook has analytics tracking for things like if you want a Facebook ad to just get clicks, right? There's one kind of metric targeting. Whereas if your Facebook ad sells a product and you want people to actually click through and buy the product, it actually evaluates a different set of criteria and might show it to different
Mm,
people. So there clearly is a different mental calculus going on in like just getting someone to click your thing or sign up for your thing and getting someone who would be like, I don't know what we would call like a genuine user.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, good idea. I like it. Thank you.
Cool, no problem.
Cool.
Should we go on to my next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so my next one was related to the App Store, and it was to basically reach a daily profit on the App Store of 10 US, like a stable profit margin, because mine are peaks and valleys. And so made some good progress this week. I, clapping, updated all of my app pages to iOS 11.
Ah,
Woo!
nice. When did you do that? Have you seen
I'm pretty
the?
proud of
Is
it.
it?
So
Oh, did it drop again? Oh no, you're still there.
it hiccuped for it hiccuped for like a half of a second. So you were saying.
I was going to say, so when did you do that? Have you been able to see a difference from that yet, one way or another?
Well, the thing is, since iOS 11 came out, I think we had talked last week or the week before about how like my downloads just spiked across the board. And that's
Mm,
still pretty true. Like I actually went back and checked, and I think like let's just say like a month or two ago, my downloads were like two for either a day or a week, whatever. Like looking in the iTunes client, I see 200. And then over the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's been 500, 600. And so
okay.
like there has definitely been like a very, very visible, massive uptick in just overall number of downloads across all of my main apps. And so I have to think that part of that is due to recent app store changes or iOS 11, reformatting the app store or the things we talked about last week. So I still like that is still continuing. Um, the only one I did early after we talked last time, which doesn't get any money. So its apps page looked lovely, but it's the only one that's been up for a few days. I just did Piper and Takora both recently, so I don't have enough time yet to really gauge it. When we do next week's call, I'll be able to see if there's an even uptick in downloads and if there's a corresponding uptick in the in-app purchases.
Cool. Right. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I mean, shit, there's like so many variables now because you have the subtitle and you have the promotion text, and like they say they target the keywords better. So now it's like, and I found a fun way to do it because on my website for all of my apps, I actually have kind of like a tagline. And so it can be like time management with Cora is the app title. And then the subtitle can be my tagline from website. And then my promotion text is like another tagline. And it's going to be, I'm going to have to try not to try to change stuff too rapidly because there's so many new variables now.
Yeah, my understanding is that the promotional text isn't going to affect it will affect downloads, I guess, or conversion rate, but that won't affect ASO or search ranking or anything. Although now I'm saying that out loud, I'm just assuming that because you can change it without approval. I don't actually know whether that's true. I haven't seen anyone say that.
Right.
Either way.
That's a fair point.
You can still change it and measure the impact for sure.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And linked up with that, so got the pages updated with all the metadata goodiness. I tweaked Tacora's name again. Before it was task and time management with Tacora, but I noticed in my search ads over the past few weeks that the task-based keywords were either not performing as well, like they were getting lots of clicks, but the conversion was poor. So I switched it to just time management with Tacora, like keeping it much more simple, time management, because that's what the app is about. It's really about Pomodoro timing your daily tasks. It's not a replacement for AnyDo or Slack or Wunderlist or anything like that. So I'm going to see how the updated ad campaign and the kind of hopefully clearer branding, if that leads to a higher quality of downloads.
Excellent. Cool. Okay. And then you've got some other tasks for this week for that as well.
Yes. So let's see. You mean the new ones that I created?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So task for the coming week.
Yeah. So in like any problem, it generated a whole bunch of extra things that I wanted to do. So part of this was I was just doing these kind of quick, hash out a new build, submit it to the App Store, tweak the metadata that we have talked about, and let it go. So now that we have iPhones 8 and the 10, I need to generate new screenshots. We have some new screen sizes. I can tweak my my screenshot text a bit, give everything like a little bit of a juice up, because it's been maybe 3 to 6 months since I updated some of those. So that's one of my tasks for next week. And then I actually gave myself 3 weeks of tasks that I don't have to do 3 weeks, but I didn't want to load myself and under deliver. So what I also want to do is what you've done, which is create a video preview for each one of mine, which is set for the week after that. And then finally, something I know you've done in World Time is go giant title bar and update for the iPhone 10 with the ridiculous amount of free space in the title bar if you're not on an iPhone
10. Well, I haven't actually done iPhone 10 support, but I've changed to the iOS 11 prefers large titles thing.
Right.
So yeah, don't forget that the iPhone 10 doesn't come out until November the 3rd.
That's true.
You have plenty of time for that side of it.
It's like my big problem with the design paradigm is like if you look at World Time, you have the big title now, and it's like basically just took the title out of the title bar and put it on the next line and made it bigger. But that means like on any not iPhone 10, there's just a massive gap of space now.
This is
like, it's strange. Have you just like, I had to update iOS 10 after we talked about squashing some bug offline in the 7 and 7 app. And so I got it, and like I've only been on it for like 3 or 4 days, and some of the UI stuff is just like if you just open the settings app, it looks like there was a bug and they accidentally put too much space up top,
Yeah, you kind of Because I've had it since like beta 3, and so you definitely get adjusted to it. I don't really see it anymore.
Mm,
And kind of now I've found that since it's actually been out, some of the apps that have updated to support it, I kind of think they look quite good.
right.
So I feel like it has definitely grown on me. Um, but I agree,
Okay.
where there's a title and no buttons, it does feel like, what's going on with all this
Yeah.
space? But then in that case, you don't have to do it. And Apple don't always. So they're like the Clocks app, for example, doesn't adopt the new style.
Mm.
Maybe the Stocks app doesn't. There's definitely more than one.
Oh, you're
Uh,
right. Yeah, the Clocks app is old school.
yeah, which maybe be just because nobody's been allocated to updating it. But on the other hand, it is still there
Right.
like that. Um, so yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
you.
but I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, at the end of the day, it's inevitable, right? So that's why I kind of spaced my tasks out like over the next week or couple of weeks. Screenshots,
Yeah,
previews, because those are device agnostic, and that's just taking advantage of the app store, and then eventually support the
right.
ads, the
I see. I
tablet.
know.
Sorry.
I didn't realize I see now your different deadline dates on there. So yeah,
Mhm.
I thought you were doing those all next week. So
Yeah, no. That was mostly just so I wanted to keep those ideas, and I just didn't feel like having them somewhere else, so I just like loaded them up in the to dos.
yeah, that makes sense. And then okay, new screenshots. And so, are you gonna release the tipping change where you take out France and all that stuff from the free ones and change the free?
Yes, you know
That's
what?
got it.
Let me let me add that. I'm gonna do create new screenshots with a plus, and then I'm gonna say like swap the free Piper countries. Yeah, because I keep wanting to do that, and then I keep not doing that. So there we go. In there for next week.
Yeah, because I feel like that is just money on the table.
No, you're totally right. Like you're totally right because if I look at my in-app purchases, most of my in-app purchases are Southeast Asia, which
Mm,
means like, and I feel like the two biggies are like Europe, Asia, and if I'm giving away some of Europe for free, you're right. I'm probably leaving like a massive amount of money on the table. Whereas like
yeah,
you can totally get the impression of what it is to like tip in like Namibia or Vanuatu or even like a bigger country like New Zealand, and that wouldn't like necessarily sacrifice too much of a crowd.
yeah, exactly.
Nice. Well, so those are my avalanche of tasks. What about you? How has it been going with the tip jar?
The tip jar has been a bit more frustrating. So I only started working on it today, but I kind of decided, or I was following. I have done a CocoaPod before, but I never did one with a UI, and I was kind of following the instructions on how to do it, and it kind of was just not going very well. Like I don't know, it's just been frustrating basically. So I kind of did follow the instructions, and I wanted to include a sample project because that's just useful just for testing a UI based
Of
kind of
course,
thing.
yeah.
But then when I did the pod install into the demo thing, it kind of seemed to totally destroy the project. Um, and so I did things
Fair
like
enough.
that several times, and so like Swift 4, and then things that I had examples of before are broken with Swift 4. And so, yeah, I now have got like a screen. So I've got a tip screen, and um, yeah, and so I've got a project structure, not in any kind of CocoaPod, and I've got a laid out screen, and I've got kind of a few bits, but I didn't get as far as I hoped on that. It was, yeah, it was a bit
That's
frustrating,
fair.
but yeah, it's moving forward now. So by next week, my task should be really to have, certainly to have the structure finished and have it pulling the prices from the website or from
Nice.
the App Store, and then do that. And yeah, I think if I've got that done, I'll be pretty happy.
And
Um,
how does the how would a pod put in at purchase data,
so
or would it
it's
hit the P list you make?
Well, that will be so. One option would be to make a P list. I think what I'm going to do is basically say you have to give your purchases a particular name. So I'm going to say they have to be called, or an identifier, I should say. So I'm going to say you have to have
Mhm.
four. If for this to work, you have to have four in-app purchases, and they have to be named tip 1, tip 2, tip 3, and tip 4, or whatever.
That makes
Um,
sense.
and so that isn't ideal, but that is, for step 1, that would work for my two apps, or and maybe others. So
Right.
I was kind of like, just going
Also,
to keep this simple.
that's a really small amount of that's a really small amount of admin to add to get all that tipping functionality without having to build all that yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, because I was going to do A/B testing and stuff like that, and I think I'm going to take that out for now. Just going to build a basic thing with screens that I like. Um,
Right.
Ultimately, for tipping, people are going to tip or they're going to not tip. It's not the same as or as much as other stuff, right? So,
That
um,
makes sense.
or they're going to tip for features and not for just for what the color of the button is and stuff like that. So,
Right. Right.
yeah. So I'm going to keep it simple, get it done.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. So I'm basically, when in doubt, I'm copying pcalc. That is my approach for that.
Hey, like when in doubt, I'm gonna copy a Star Wars game. When you're in doubt,
Yeah,
copy. When in doubt, like copy the thing you wish you had.
exactly. I think modeling rather than copying is a better
Model. Yeah.
model. We'll take inspiration from exactly,
Heavy inspiration.
exactly. So that's how that's gone. So it's been annoying, but I'm pleased. I'm still pleased to have made some progress rather than none at all, and the screen looks good and stuff like that. So
Right.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Well, it's
It's
like
not
you
bad.
said, it's uncharted waters, dealing with this. So any progress you make on this is gonna pay off time and again in any future app you build.
That is certainly the hope. Yeah. Um,
Excellent. All right. So so that makes sense. For next week, going to continue on fleshing that out. Are you still going to try to have that full Cocoa Pod, or are you going to have it just work on your own things
Um,
for right now?
well, it will still be its own repository, so it will be like a
Right.
sub repo. But I think I would like to make it
Cool.
CocoaPod, but maybe I'm gonna do that last instead of first. I'm get too easily frustrated
That
when
makes sense.
things aren't working. So I want to build the thing and then make
Totally.
it into a pod rather than the other way around.
That makes
So
sense. Because yeah, at least at the end of the day, the thing works, and you're just trying to like jam it into like a pod shoe.
yeah, exactly. And so one thing that's been, I can't remember whether I've done it before, but one thing I am trying to do this time, which is different, I think is different to what I've done before, is I'm trying to do almost like the client side first, or at least
Mhm.
at the same time. So I'm not trying to build something and then make it work. I'm trying to think about it almost from the consumption perspective. Um, so I
That's
hope
interesting.
that is going to be useful, and it's kind of rather than just because originally I defined a few weeks ago, I wrote out what I thought the API would be, but now I'm trying
Right.
to actually write the code from the consumer side and then stub it, and then I can it rather than have to go back and change it afterwards. So
That makes sense.
yeah, cool.
Nice.
Am I getting?
All right.
I'm getting super dark. I'm just going to turn the lights
Every
off.
I feel like it would not be a pod recording of ours at this time of day if like halfway in it didn't get like awkwardly dark for you.
Yeah, I was going to shut the curtains to reduce noise, but then I said no, I need the light, and then it's still just getting dark.
Yeah.
So there we go.
No, it's so funny. But it's just this is like the last week for that for a while. And then we're gonna be in very similar time zones for probably quite some time.
Yeah, that is it.
Nice. All
So
right.
yeah, and then so the task for next week for that is is get that screen finished and then start getting the prices. And
Nice.
yeah, I'll be happy if I get to that at this point next week.
Great. Nice. Yeah. It's a good target.
Yeah. And how about 20 Patreons? So this is the we had seismic visions with this one. And remind me where we were with that and what the goal was for this week.
Right. So last week we were still kind of dealing with the fallout of my kit's like amazing strategy document that kind of pointed out that we were thinking about this target entirely the wrong way. And so I've looked at it a bunch this week, and while I don't like, my task for last week was to basically like come up with a series of concrete tasks that we could both start implementing towards this goal. And it's more like I needed one more step back, and I actually kind of needed to kind of deconstruct her strategy first and just kind of refresh it. It basically breaks down our app collective audience into two groups. We have app connoisseurs and indie developers. And the connoisseurs are those who would join our Patreon, buy our apps, join our email list, just consume our stuff. Like they like to be involved, much like you would like to be involved with like a local market or a local pub. You know, you're not manufacturing anything and you don't understand what they're doing, but you like to know how they're doing it. And then the other side is the indie developer, which is the us, like us supporting fellow people like us. Like my friend Latoya has just started a new podcast on building an app, and you know, I subscribe and want to comment on her stuff and support her in doing that. And I am a much different person to consume that, like a random to use the app she's going to build. And so part of that was thinking about that. And Lewis and I we had decided like off pod, right, that more or less I would end up focusing in the future on app connoisseurs and you focus on the indie developers. So we kind of split that strategy, you know, right down the middle. And if I did that, that means from an app connoisseur standpoint, there's three basic aspects of it, like the Patreon campaign, our apps, and our email list. And so I was trying to think, okay, what's like the lowest hanging fruit? What's the most lucrative branch to target? And at first I was thinking like targeting Patreon, you know, but then that kind of brings me back to what I was doing originally. I was like, hey, I want more Patreon hackers for us. And I should go out and get them. And now I'm actually thinking maybe it should be the opposite, to pull a lid of how you have been designing your, getting your subscribers in progress. Like maybe I should target, I'm getting lots of app downloads, right? So maybe I should be trying to somehow promote the Patreon in my apps. So I know we had already talked about like doing fake CTAs for ourselves. And I'm thinking like something more involved like that, like in my apps that are getting all these nice downloads, but not necessarily getting in-app purchases, I'm still getting eyeball time. And that means I could talk about the collective. I could say like, hey, like this app, want more of them, join the collective. Or, hey, like this app, check something out. You know, something less than an in-app purchase, less than even taking a survey. Like, hey, click this link, you know, to take a look at something. And so I'm thinking like starting next week, that might be what I target. Like in my two apps in Piper and Takora, trying to find a way to promote the app collective in a way to gain those patrons. And I don't know if I want to go like full mailing list. I think I kind of want to, it's more like if people, I feel like it's a knowledge, like what we're doing. I think it's awesome. When I tell most people about it, they think it's cool. So I feel like it's getting like awareness out. Like you were just saying with A/B tests, it's not about blue button or red button. It's about seismic differences in two images that would garner like a bigger response or a little lower response. And so I feel like with this, like it's more just like awareness. Like if more people know that the collective thing, more people are likely to back it. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. And so is there a task for next week or for this week? However we're going to phrase it for this, or what's next, basically?
Yeah, so I didn't write one down just in case I gave a whole spiel and you had like an amazing thing that you thought I should do. So I was leaving it open for your genius. But I think the easiest thing would be when I built Tacora, I built an ad unit for it, and I didn't
Right.
do the advanced work like you did for the tip jar where it's separate. Like it's tight in Tacora. So, but what I can do is I can repurpose it. I already repurposed it into Hyper for a different use. So in both of those apps, I have the code for a displayable ad unit that is tied to a NS user default setting so that it doesn't the crap out of users. So I'm thinking, yeah, I need to craft basically a CTA for the collected. And now
Okay.
I think my task for next week should be craft a CTA for the collective in both apps. I'm just unsure of where it should go. Like, should it go directly to the Patreon? Should it go to the App Collective homepage that we've kind of set up as like a catch-all, to like explain the mission? Like, what do you think?
I don't know. I think not, or my instinct is not straight to their Patreon, because I feel like the Patreon is the end of the funnel, and this is the beginning of the funnel. So I kind of think that there should be something in between.
Right.
I mean, where is Kit Slide with this in? Where can I look to see that?
Yeah, if you pick the one in progress, the Patreon task for produce a series of tasks, that'll have it as an attachment.
Oh yeah. I was just looking at it at the card, but not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Right.
Okay. So.
Because I'm mostly trying to leverage the fact that up until this point, I have not been very effective at getting the word out about the Patreon campaign, but we've both been successful at getting our apps downloaded, and even though one of my struggles has been to get a higher conversion rate for in-app purchases, it's still high app downloads. And so, it seems like actually, if that's happening, like we can leverage that,
Yeah, I totally agree. So, yeah, I'm just not sure about jumping straight. I mean, we always not disagree, but have different kind of almost cultural differences on the Patreon. If is probably the best way of putting it. So different understanding of it. So if you think
I like the idea of a cultural difference.
Yeah. So if you think that jumping straight to the Patreon is viable, then yeah, do that for sure. Because the thing is, the other two. So in this tree, we've got under the app connoisseurs, we've got Patreon, buy apps, and email list. And so, the other thing would be under buy apps. Is it then linking to your other apps in that ad? I'm not sure what you would do immediately for that.
Right.
So that's not a bad idea necessarily, but that's one option. And then for the email list, that is certainly a non-trivial amount of work to produce something like that.
All right. Well, how about this? Rather than trying to leapfrog to an answer, why don't I make my task for next week to think about, okay, we have our customer, right? We have our avatar that we want to target, a person who would be likely to download our apps who is not an app developer. And what our goal is to get them to back us on Patreon. And so we have kind of like the start, we have to kind of like the finish. So why don't I try to come up with a couple of different funnels that lead them from that starting point to that finishing point, and we can debate them next week. And then the week after that, I can build one of them.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good idea. And the only other thought that I have in my head against linking to the Patreon direct is that I would, because I'm such a wuss, I would be nervous about linking to Patreon. Like if Apple saw that and knew about it, I think they would say no. So whether they actually would see it is a whole nother question.
Yeah,
but,
and what's funny is, right? Yeah. Well, and honestly, that occurred to me 40 seconds ago too. So I think you're right. I think the thing is, like, I've rebranded the App Collective landing page to be that catch-all CTA. It says who we are. it gives you the link to the Patreon right there. It lets you join, this podcast or find it on YouTube. And I can always tweak that as well. So that might be the safer bet. Like, there's no problem linking to a website. And that gives us quite a bit of flexibility to tweak either the website or the message pushing people to the website so that we can see, we can kind of toggle both ends of that A/B test to see how they work out.
I mean, maybe I'm just thinking out loud again here. Maybe the email list thing isn't such a bad idea, because creating an email every week or every month or however it is, that is work. But on the other hand, just hoovering up the email addresses isn't a lot of work. Just having something in the app that collects people's email addresses, and then you can start sending them stuff. That isn't ideal, but it's better than nothing. That's like a step forwards.
That's true. All right. Well, then how about this? I'll go back to my thing I said before. And my goal, my task for this coming week will be to take the strategy, take the app connoisseur side and those funnels, and try to come up with a few different strategies for basically, getting us to that end goal, whether that would be copying what you're doing in progress and doing like an email list capture, or like a direct CTA to the Patreon, or a CTA to the App Collective homepage with the hope that they go to the Patreon. And we can kind of debate the merits and usefulness of them, and then we can just try them out.
Yeah. Okay. Good call.
Perfect. Easy one. All right. And then that brings us to the last one, to my favorite one, the Nomad Tracker.
Yeah. So my goal for this week was to enable feedback and direction from testers. And so I have made code changes and pushed them into test flight, but not to the kind of public test flight. And so the issue that I encountered, which I wanted to discuss with you, is that, so the way that with the background tracking, basically, as long as you don't force quit the app, it will carry on tracking in the background, or the delegate will carry on getting called indefinitely, even if you reboot, the app, reboot the device. So that's pretty cool. But if you install an update there and don't open the app, then the tracking will stop. And so it's kind of, I think probably, so one thing is I could either code some kind of push notification thing, or I don't know. So basically it's is that something at this stage I should worry about or not? And then I don't know. I'm not really sure what to do, because it would be annoying if I've told everybody. I guess another question is, how many people will likely download the update and not run it to see what's there? I don't know, because it's not like the App Store where it will automatically update. You would have to go to test flight and do the update.
You would also get the email.
You would get an email, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I mean, like, it's very action oriented is all I meant. Like my apps can update in the background right now, but if you get the email, you might click it, you might install it, and then honestly, I would say most people after installing it would peek into it real quick.
Yeah, that is what I would assume, because you have to actively install it. And I guess, and I can put a message in there. I guess what I didn't want to have is half the people thinking that they're tracking and then it's not working.
Right. Well, what I would definitely recommend, I would say, okay, since it's, we're in a beta right now, we're not messing too much about it. I would say, one, don't worry about it. Like, the people like me won't forget to keep it running, and like, don't waste the memory, don't waste the brain cycles on it. But when you do come time to do it, I actually do think the push notification model is probably a solid one. I did this for Takora, where I was really worried about people doing a Pomodoro timing and then never going back into the app. And so basically, like, I set up a series of push notifications for your tasks. So like, basically, even if you never interacted with the app again, the push notifications kind of take care of it. And I think, I'm not 100% sure on this, but when a push notification fires, you either get the ability to execute a tiny bit of code, or at least when your app finally relaunches, you can. So at the very least, what you could do is you could say, you know what, fire off a push notification like a week from now. And then it would be like, hey, how you doing? Or something like, I don't know, like it could be just like some kind of little check-in on like a weekly basis. Because since this is macro tracking, it's okay if it didn't track for a few days.
Yeah, well, I think so. The idea I had, so I may well do it in the future. It was just whether to do it now. But you can send like background notifications. So, for example, Facebook could send a notification to the app saying, "Hey, there's new
Right.
Facebook content," and then the app
Right.
can just launch silently in the background and download that content so that it's ready next time
Right.
the user opens the app.
One of
And
the few background execution things you're allowed to do, right?
exactly. So, so that will be one way of dealing with it. So I don't know, but that isn't a trivial thing. I don't think. I don't think it's epic,
Well,
but it's not trivial either.
it's actually, that's actually like, I would almost put that on like top of the mountain. Like you'd have to have a dedicated server. You have to run there's like some stupid Apple thing you have to run to make it like there, I forget exactly what the hell it was, but there's like a thing you have to do so that it knows it's a guy for your app. And then on top of that, would not consume more battery since it has to be running in the background ever so slightly.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. It's on the back shelf for now. I put in a shout in the update text. Please relaunch the app.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, actually, here's a thought. Okay, one, can you re-enable the functionality when the app launches, or does it have to come in direct response to user input?
How do you? Sorry, ask the question again.
Oh, sure. So say I started tracking, right? But my
Yeah.
iPhone crashed and my phone reboots and it undid it. When the app relaunches the next time, like I open the app back up, can you start tracking back up yourself?
Yeah, it will already do that. So if you launch the app and it was previously tracking, it will start tracking again.
Right.
And if you reboot the phone, it will. The only reason it would stop tracking is if you update the app and don't relaunch it, if you force quit the app, or if the app crashes.
Okay, so say one of those three situations occur, and then I go to reopen the app, either after a crash, a force quit, or whatever. Will it start up again once I reopen it?
It would at that point, yeah.
Okay, so what I would say you could do, and this would be easy, not right now, but like next or later, is you set up a push notification for like a week. So every time the app opens, set a push notification for 1 week from now. And the push notification will just say, hey, see where you've been this past week. And then when you come back, it would restart it, and you could just go to the tab, shows your location, to be like, hey, you've been in Barcelona this whole week. And so like you do give the user a tiny little nugget, and you give yourself the ability to never go offline for more than a week. It doesn't have to be a week. You could test it, but I felt like a week would be like a safe amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a bad idea at all. I have to see, and it might be that in the real app store, it doesn't kill them when you update, although I bet it does.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. Because like, what if you had something like you just said, like, I mean, I had to disable apps like Facebook Messenger and them from running in the background because they kill your battery. But say you updated Facebook Messenger, it has to sort of still work, right? Because you still get push notifications when you get new messages.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe the other thing is actually thinking about it, that maybe because you get notified when the user quits the app, so maybe updating amounts to quitting, and then maybe you can do something at that point. So maybe you queue the notification when they quit the app, and if you assume that either they've quit the app or whatever, then you queue the notification and go like, hey, reopen me.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's quite a good solution. But I obviously can't do that for this time. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
exactly. And
I think
like that's definitely like a not don't worry about this right now task. Like that's a
yeah.
down the line task for sure.
So excellent. So the goal for next week then, I am less sure about. So should I focus on?
Right.
So I got about 20 testers, I think. I'd need to go and check again, but I'm
Okay.
now
Not bad.
fairly
Not bad.
happy with, I'm pretty pleased with the response overall.
Great.
And so should I go back to features or should I stick on business things?
Okay,
Okay.
well, let's lay it out. If you did features, what would be the first feature you want to do? If you did business, what's the next business thing you do?
Okay, so for features, I think what I would probably add the kind of import locations from photos thing, just because I've already done that in another app, and so it would be a very quick win. And at least one person already asked me about that already. So
Yeah, I saw that in Facebook.
yeah, so that will be something that is certainly going to be something that people want. And one of the sort of semi-competitors I've seen does that as well. So
Okay.
so that would probably be my first feature, just because it's so low hanging but so useful.
Right.
And then for business, it would either be trying to get more testers, or yeah, trying to get testers from somewhere other than Facebook, I guess, would be the thing, and building up the audience that way.
Right.
So I don't know. I think.
Well, you know what you could do? Actually, how about this? We can use the calendar to our advantage. Say you did this. I like the idea of you doing the low hanging fruit feature. You said you already have the code. There's probably a low likelihood of it ballooning into something catastrophic, and
Yeah.
it's got some payoff. So say this coming week you did that feature, and then the week after that is 7 and 7, and you can get users in person.
Yeah.
So like because if you have 20 users now, I'm confident you could get 20 more at 7 and 7.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, and I think maybe what I'm going to do is research, does the app send a terminating message when shutting for update? Because I think that actually solves that problem. Because if I'm going to be doing updates a lot in this period, I kind of don't want it to be pissing off the beta testers.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Well, actually, okay, if you can't find a consensus online, you can test this real easily, right? Because in your app delegate, it'll either call the app did terminate or the app will enter background, right? And so you could just log a field, like a Boolean, right, to the user default, and then go back and check it.
Yeah. Logging to user defaults is a good idea. Test.
Yeah.
Logging to user defaults. Yeah, good call. I'll do that.
Nice.
Yeah. That will be excellent.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool. Good. That is it. Another good week.
Excellent. Yeah, I think we're doing good. I think there's a lot of good momentum. And like I said, in not this mastermind, but the one after that, I'm really going to balloon, and I'm going to have many more exciting tasks to hopefully discuss. And I will overwhelm you with all of my amazing speed and efficiency.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, then please give us a like or a subscribe below and let us know what you think in the comments. And we'll see you next week.